My name is Tyler Fornes, and I am one of the co-hosts of the Good, the Bad, and the Hungy AEW podcast here on the Voice of Wrestling Podcasting Network. We take a broad scope approach to the world of All Elite Wrestling and the entire universe of Tony Khan. We talk about the big matches, the big stars, the promos, the storylines, and we also look at it from a big picture perspective. How are things going to change over the course of the next 10 years with AEW still in the picture? How are companies like WWE going to adapt and adjust to AEW? Are they going to be a similar way like they did with WCW in the late 1990s? Will there be a counterpunch? We talk about all of that and more on The Good, the Bad, and the Hungy every week on the Voice of Wrestling Network.
Hello, everyone. My name is Taylor.
And I'm Kelly.
And we are the co-hosts of Jumping Bomb Audio, the #1 show all about the world of Joshi Pro Wrestling. Every other Monday, we're coming at you with news, show reviews, and previews of upcoming Joshi action.
So whether you're just getting into the scene or you've seen it all, this is the show for you.
Check us out on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network and wherever you get your audio.
This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Music of the Mat Remix on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network. I am your host, Andrew Rich, joined today once again by a returning guest. He is a contributor at Voices of Wrestling. It's Jeremy Sexton. Hello again, Jeremy.
Hello. Happy to be back.
Glad you're back. Yeah, I believe last time you were on was literally a year ago, give or take a day. So we're staying punctual here, which is nice.
There you go.
And I think the big question is, 1 year later, Jeremy, have you succumbed to the wicked ways of Las Vegas yet?
You know, I think part of the thing that helps is I don't really leave my house too much. So, no, I haven't succumbed to much except for laying on the couch. So
Good to hear. Good to hear. Yeah. Well. Speaking of Wicked, I know you've got WrestleMania coming there again next year, which I know you went to some mini weekend shows this year. So are you looking forward to more madness come April?
Yeah, we'll see. It'll depend on what the lineups look like this year, how many shows I go to. I think it's just too hard for me these days to go for a weekend like that. It took it out of me so hard afterwards. I was laid up for a week afterwards after this past years. And so this coming one, the Japanese companies that come, I'll probably go check them out. But yeah, I'll be staying far, far away from all the GCW shows and all the big stuff. I'm good. I did it once and it was fun, and now I don't need to see Bloodsport live again.
Yeah, I remember the mad dash of the New York mini weekend one I went to, where you're trying to squeeze in 15 shows or whatever into a single weekend. It's craziness. I mean, the advantage of having one of these weekends where you live is you don't have to worry about hotels or rental cars and all that stuff. You can just go home for the night. That's pretty nice.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, 1 minute you're watching a 2.5 hour GCW clusterfuck match. The next you're in bed. It's great.
That was my actual experience, yeah. And I was sitting there at 3 a.m. Local time going, do I leave? I've already been here for this long. It's not the worst case of, I totally blanked on what is that fallacy where, You're bought in. You don't
Sunk
want
cost fallacy.
Sunk cost. That is it. Goodness, why in the world could I not remember that? But yeah, not by any means the worst example of the sunk cost fallacy happening in Vegas that night. But there was me sitting at Pearl of the Palms going, do I leave? But hey, had I left, I wouldn't have seen, Brody Lee's kid win the longest battle royal of my life. So, there's that.
Well, this should not take as long as that clusterfuck match did, I think, because today's episode here, Jeremy, it's actually based on something that you suggested on your last appearance. We did the card subject to change episode with songs that are not sung by the normal lead singer, and we played Beth by Kiss. And you said, hey, how about songs that don't sound like the rest of a band's or an artist's catalog? And I wrote that down, and we're going to play some of those songs here today. But I'm also expanding this topic to include songs that represent an artist changing their sound or their style overall. Because oftentimes, one song that sounds different isn't really an outlier. There's an entire album or series of albums that are also in that new style. And I think it just makes sense to do that, given the title I've come up with for this episode, which is Gimmick Changes. Because one of the ways that musicians and wrestlers are alike is, they're not set in stone. As we'll see with our picks, a musician can change their sound year to year, album to album, even song to song. Same is true for a wrestler. A wrestler can go a long time with a gimmick, or a short time, or a medium time, but the odds are really, really, really good that they're going to change something about their gimmick at some point. Could be their name, could be their look, their moveset, their promo style, their backstory, or anything else. And that's the cool thing about both mediums, I think, is that they allow for change. The Ringmaster can become Stone Cold Steve Austin. Or Punisher Dice Morgan can become The Undertaker, or Keiichi Yamada can become Jushin Thunder Liger, and so on. And, not all changes are necessarily good or successful. For every Rocky Maivia becomes The Rock, there's a Chavo Guerrero who becomes Kerwin White. For every David Bowie becomes Ziggy Stardust, there's a Garth Brooks becomes Chris Gaines. But, regardless, gimmick changes, sound changes, style changes, they're pretty much universal, I think, Jeremy.
Yeah, music is one of the places where people really do, where you see people in the public eye completely reinvent themselves. I guess you kind of see that with actors, but really only as they're transitioning, from being child actors to, wanting to take on more adult roles, or, sometimes, somebody will get, shredded for one role and now they're getting more leading roles or something. But, music and wrestling are these spaces where people really can just completely reinvent themselves in the public eye, and sometimes to tremendous results, sometimes to less than stellar ones. But it's interesting too with music, because there are some bands that really could have qualified for this list, but they never were famous before they made the change. Anthrax, for example, was a thrash hair metal band before they're doing glam rock.
Pantera was a glam metal band before Cowboys from Hell came around.
Yep. And so you get these bands that it doesn't work out, but then they find the secret sauce and it really takes off. And then you have someone, like David Bowie, who's, the Chris Jericho of music, that's constantly reinventing himself. I was I feel like Bowie should be on this list for this episode. And then I couldn't pick a song because they're all so different and he's constantly changing that it's what are we saying he's deviating from? Who is David Bowie?
Well, a certain someone may have picked a certain David Bowie for the playout song later on, so don't worry about that. No spoilers, but it's funny, when I was thinking of what to put on my list, there are bands that I played on the previous episode that I did with Tyler that would have fit right in here. Genesis, Yes, The Killers. These are bands that have swung in very different directions throughout their careers, but As I said, I still enjoy them regardless of what they sound like because they're very talented bands. At the end of the day, I think the quality of the music is the most important thing, regardless of how it sounds. Whatever change they undergo, big or small, the trick is, can they make it work? And we see that with wrestlers too. You mentioned Chris Jericho. He's the classic example. How many times has Chris Jericho reinvented himself with a new look or a new character trait or catchphrase or something else and made it work and got it over? Quite a lot, Look at someone like Sami Zayn. For years he was El Generico, one of the best wrestlers and babyfaces in the entire world. And then he becomes Sami Zayn in WWE, and people were freaking out like, oh my god, how could he not be El Generico? I can't believe this. And then guess what? He was still amazing, because that's who that guy is, So, yeah, change is one thing. Making that change work is what really matters, Jeremy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I feel like we've got a couple lists here of bands that, for the most part, made those changes work.
Yeah. Well, let's get to the music here. We have 8 picks each and a play-out song at the end, like I said. Jeremy, you're the guest. You'll go first. What's your first pick?
So my first pick is from the John Mayer Trio, which was an album that John Mayer put out after it's the album with Daughters on it, was his last album. And so people had like sort of pigeonholed him into this like singer-songwriter guy. Like I remember working at KB Toys and we had No Such Thing on our Muzak CD. I think like every month, like that, just it never left. Like it was just always like you were going to hear No Such Thing at least 5 times during your shift. And so he had really been in this like mold where people just kind of like, he's that pop guitar guy. And then he does this album with the John Mayer Trio. And so here is a song that's representative of that album. It's a song that's one of my personal favorites of any artist. It's called Another Kind of Green.
She lost her mind. She left him and made it look sexy now. I fear you won't be far behind, thinking I'll be the next to leave. I know I might be anxious, but I'm still not crazy. And I don't need another kind of green to know I'm on the right side with you.
Yeah, so this one, I just absolutely love this song. This whole album it's just the 3 of them. It's John Mayer, Steve Jordan, and Pino Palladino. And it's 3 guys, and they do this live show that is all of this like blues, and man, it is so good. And they sound like that's only 3 people playing. That song sounds so full. And yeah, it's just 3 of them, and all 3 of them are just absolutely killing it the whole way through the song. And the whole album's like that. It's just tremendous. And I picked this because it's after this that the rest of the world, because guitar players knew, because people had been like, how hard could it be to play these John Mayer songs? I'm going to learn Neon. And then you learned, no, you weren't. It's impossible to play. And so guitar players knew that this guy was legit, and this is where I feel like the rest of the world started waking up to like, oh wow, this guy is not just singer-songwriter guy, another, Jason Mraz or what have you. This is a guy that is like a real deal legit musical genius.
Yeah, if you've made your bones on songs like No Such Thing and Your Body is a Wonderland and waiting on the world to change. I can understand the itch to stretch your legs and be seen as a legit blues guitar guy and not just the soft rock pretty boy. It's kind of like a plunder wrestler trying to prove that they can actually wrestle, and grapple and not just swing a chair or whatever. And it helps a lot that John Mayer can back it up. He is very talented, as opposed to, trying it out and flopping. So, good on him. And you mentioned the other guys in the trio. What a lineup. I mean, Pino Palladino has played with everybody. The Who, Eric Clapton, Elton John, Don Henley, Tina Turner, Adele, B.B. King, Beyonce, a million other people. He's a session bassist to the stars. And the drummer, Steve Jordan, he replaced Charlie Watts in the Rolling Stones. So, yeah, not a bad lineup there, Jeremy.
Pretty good.
Yeah. All right, well, my first pick, I'm starting off with a doozy here. Because in 1983, Neil Young put out an album called Trans. And if you think you know what Neil Young sounds like, think again. I picked a song here. It's called Sample and Hold. Yeah, we're a long way away from old man, take a look at my life. I'm a lot like you. We're in the future, baby. So yeah, Neil Young going into this album, he was apparently inspired by two things. One, Kraftwerk, which is pretty obvious,
Yeah.
and his young son who had cerebral palsy and he couldn't talk. And Neil Young had this idea about using technology to communicate. Hence, the vocoder being such a major part of the album and the synclavier. And it's a huge left turn. I mean, this sounds nothing like the rest of his catalog. At the time, people were baffled by it, as anyone would be. His own bandmates were baffled by it, because Crazy Horse is on this album. You wouldn't know it, given how it sounds. And, nowadays, some people see it as being ahead of its time, as like a precursor to bands like Daft Punk and guys like that. But whatever the case, it is very peculiar, Jeremy, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is a hard turn into, see the needle and drop the beat. It's it's a little bit of a difference for old Neil there. But yeah, and what's funny, too, is the first song on the album doesn't sound that different. So, back then, you're definitely listening to this front to back. And so you put the album in, you're like, new Neil Young. Yep, sounds great. And then the second track is what in the world just happened? Did they mix this up? Is this the same record? Yeah, such a wild, weird record, and such an interesting. I didn't know the backstory though about his son and communicating through technology. That's a really interesting, I guess, reason. Even if to think what you want about the songs, it's an interesting artistic idea to go into the project with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'll never forget the first time I heard this. I was driving to see Black Sabbath, and I was listening to Deep Cuts on XM, and this song came on, and I did, out of a comedy, a double take. Seriously, this is Neil Young? But sure enough, later on, I'm singing to myself, I want a unit to sample and hold. I do like this song, Jeremy,
Yeah, I mean, for what it is, it's a decent little track.
Yeah, very, very appropriate, I think, for this episode, though. Just, like we said, some of these changes will be, not that big. Some will be like that. So,
this is a Curryman style change,
Oh,
just a little,
yes.
pop out and then, back to normal.
Hot and spicy, yeah. But all right, what's your next pick there, Jeremy?
So my next pick, it could be one of two artists, honestly. I went with Nas here, but it's also a Tupac song originally, and then Nas has a version. When you're talking about posthumous music, it can get messy. But the point is, there is an acoustic rap song done by Nas and Tupac called Thug's Mansion, and it's delightful. Have a listen.
Check it out. I'm capable of anything. My imagination can give me wings to fly like doves over the streets, watching many things. Kids walking home from school on drug blocks, missionaries pass out papers that read love God. I see faces, cases, judges and jurors, masons, lawyers and cops. I watch cause every thug's face is my mirror, but this was one in particular. This kid, he was the vintage stick of my pro. 16 years old, did his jail sentence, nowhere to go. Every morning calls his comrade to come and get him to smoke. He insane, already gone mad, blames himself for his setbacks. Dangerous street corners where his set's at. Sling from dusk to dawn. Detectives act like they maniacs chasing him. His asthma's flaring, smoking like a chimney on Remy. Of course he not caring. He need a place to go to keep his mind expanding. I give him a helping hand, bring him out to Thug's Mansion.
Every corner, every city, there's a place where life's a little easy. Little Hennessy, laid back and cool every hour, cause it's all good. Leave all the stress from the world outside. Every wrong done will be alright. Nothing but peace, love, and street passion. Every ghetto needs a thug.
Dear mama, don't cry, your baby boy's doing good. Tell the homies I'm in heaven.
So yeah, we've got Nas, posthumous Tupac, singing a song about heaven with nothing other than an acoustic guitar in the background and Jay Phoenix on the hook. This song is great, and it's interesting. It works in a way that seems obvious to me in retrospect. That of course, the rhythm of strumming an acoustic guitar could lend itself to hip hop on top of it, but you just see it so rarely that the first time I heard this song, it just totally blew my mind.
Yeah, when I went to summer camp, there were plenty of acoustic guitar sing-alongs. This one, not part of the rotation, but but yeah, there's a lot of layers here. Yeah, obviously there's the novel approach of an acoustic rap song. You also have a song with Nas and Tupac on it, who used to be rivals, but then they made up right before Tupac got shot and killed. And the song is about thugs going to their own version of heaven that doesn't have drugs or cops or killings. And Nas does a shout out to Tupac's mom in the song. It's pretty heavy stuff. And, the simple, somber acoustic melody adds a lot to that, Jeremy.
Yeah, and you've got, it's a posthumous song. So you have this rap song where Tupac's rapping about heaven after his death. And he begins his verse in this song, dear mama, don't cry, your baby boy's doing good. Tell the homies I'm in heaven and they ain't got hoods. It's like this, it really kind of messes with you mentally, because it's almost as though this is this message that Tupac has sent us from beyond. That it, and Nas works into it so well, and plays off of things about Tupac and about things that he said, and it's just such an interesting, intricate little track that all comes together, and this just really beautiful song that, hey, it's a hip-hop song that also can get added to my acoustic playlist that I have on Spotify. That's just really interesting.
Mm-hmm. And what's also interesting too, this is 6 years after Tupac died, and he's still putting out music, or his estate is anyway. I mean, it's crazy how, I think Tupac has more albums come out after his death than before. It's wild, but that's the thing about artists. They can record stuff and just put it in a vault or put it aside as a demo, and after they go, maybe years beyond that, someone will find it and put it out because hey, it's stuff to put out.
Well, and I wonder too, like, just like Tupac was so great, like, just at like lyrically, he was so great. His flow is so impeccable, which is one of the things that makes this song really work, is that you can't have people on this track that don't have like a really solid flow of their own, because the instrumental's not helping them at all. You've got to do all the heavy lifting, and he can. And there's a part of me that almost wonders, like, just like, okay, he had access to so much studio time that he could just go record whenever he had an idea or whatever, that like all this stuff is banked. And with his like, as shallow as hip hop would like continue to get lyrically, I feel like it just kind of opened an opportunity that like, yeah, he's still going to be better than all these dudes making new music. So just put a new beat behind it and boom, you're off to the races. And there you go.
Why
It's
not?
easy.
Definitely, yeah. And one more thing here, I did want to mention, Nas, he has performed Illmatic live with a symphony orchestra. Which
Oh,
is
yes, I've seen it.
Another atypical blending of styles there.
Yeah.
And then Cypress Hill last year performed with the London Symphony Orchestra after it was a joke in The Simpsons like years ago. So,
Yep.
We have these rappers, using, an orchestra as their backing music live, which again is pretty novel.
Yeah, I thought about that too, because so last year was the 30th anniversary of Illmatic. And for that, in celebration, Nas did a string of performances almost a year ago to the day, because it was around Labor Day weekend last year, where he performed with the Las Vegas Philharmonic, and they played Illmatic front to back. And so sort of recreating the thing that he had done at the Kennedy Center. And so I got to go, and it was just absolutely incredible. Like, to be there and hear the orchestra and him, and it was mixed really well. Props to the crew over at the Win. Yeah, and he's doing it more and more in it. Like, I saw he came back again this year to do it again. So if you get the chance, if he tours near you, and Nas is, because I think he's touring it now, if he tours near you, I highly recommend it. It was incredible.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll stay in the rap genre with my next pick here. And, a few of my picks, they aren't the first instances of a gimmick change for an artist. They might already be an album or two into the change, but they are a good representation of that change. And this is one of those cases. This is a band you don't hear too much of nowadays, but back in the yonder days of the 2000s, they were massive. This is the Black Eyed Peas off their 2005 album Monkey Business. And this is Don't Funk With My Heart. And that's funk with a PH, folks.
Girl, you know you got me, with your pistol, shot me. And I'm here helplessly, in love and nothing can't stop me. You can't stop me once I started, can't return me once you bought it. I'm coming, baby, don't doubt it. So let's be about it.
No, don't funk with my heart.
Baby, have some trust in when I come with lust and lustin'. Cause I bring you that comfort. I ain't only here cause I want your body, I want your mind too. Interesting is what I find you, and I'm interested in the long haul. Come on, girl. Yeehaw!
I wonder if I take you home, would you still be in love, baby? In love, baby. I wonder if I take you home, would you still be in love, baby? In love, baby. No, don't funk with my heart.
Girl, you had me once you kissed me. My love for you is not airfare. I always want you.
Yeah, Black Eyed Peas, very much a hits band to me, and some hits I like more than others. This one I like a lot, especially the chorus from Fergie there. But that's the point I want to make. Black Eyed Peas, they started as an alt hip hop trio. It was will.i.am, Taboo, and Apple Diap, and it wasn't until their third album, Elefunk, that Fergie came aboard as a singer, and she transformed the band in more ways than one. because they were still at their core a rap group, but now they were much more pop and dance influenced. With songs like this, Where Is the Love, Let's Get It Started, My Humps, Pump It. Of course, the juggernauts of Boom Boom Pow and I Got a Feeling. And that, again, they became also one of the biggest bands in the world. All those songs were massive hits, and they played the Super Bowl, for God's sake, and it was that change in sound that allowed them to become such, commercial juggernauts there, Jeremy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's probably people that like heard this and were like, wait, why is this the pick for Black Eyed Peas? And it's because they probably don't know what Black Eyed Peas used to sound like. Black Eyed Peas used to be much more closely related to like Dilated Peoples, Common, Talib Kweli, like guys like that is what they sounded like. And then, as you mentioned, Fergie comes along for Elefunk, and then for this album, she pops in, and it's changed forever. Like, it's hard to say, they definitely made way more money doing this than they were going to doing what they were doing previously. So this is sort of the gimmick change when, a guy you really like signs to WWE and you're like, well, they're retired to me now. Yep. But good for them. They'll get paid. So we can only hope for, the expulsion of Fergie in a late stage, like Ricochet run where, they're like, prove it. Like, no, we really can still rap. Maybe it'll happen. But, don't hold your breath.
Well, I was going to bring this up, actually. Fergie is out of the group now.
Oh, really?
She left in, I think, 2018 or so. And because the band had dropped out of the spotlight as the 2010s went on. But they're still going. They have a new touring singer. Her name is J. Ray Soul. They're still very much active. But it's amazing that for a band that was seemingly inescapable for so long, they haven't made really any big waves in the pop culture radar for quite a while there, Jeremy.
Well, I mean, they probably don't need to. Like, just commercial royalties alone, like, they probably
true.
Never need to do anything ever in their lives. Like, just from, like, I've Got a Feeling alone. Just the commercial royalties of that song solely. Like, they and their great-grandchildren are set for life.
Yeah, the annoyance that we all felt hearing that song for the 10,000th time did very well for their bank accounts, I think. So no doubt about that. But but all right, Jeremy, what's your next pick?
So my next pick is another band that went through many changes over the course of their career. But the biggest one probably comes when the Beatles start getting psychedelic. And so that we all think of Sgt. Pepper's for that because obviously, but Revolver is really the album where that starts happening sonically. And there's no better example from that than one of my favorite Beatles songs, and I believe one of yours as well, Eleanor Rigby.
Look at all the lovely people. Look at all the lovely people. Eleanor Rigby picks up the rice in the church where a wedding has been. Lives in a dream, waits at the window, wearing the face that she keeps in a jar by the door. Who is it for? All the lonely people. Where do they all come from? All the lonely people. Where do they all belong? Father Mackenzie, writing the words of a sermon that no one will hear. No one comes near. Look at him working, darning his socks in the night when there's nobody there. What does he care? All the lonely people. Where do they all come from?
Man, all the lonely people. Where do they all come from? It's an incredible song, but this is really like you start hearing those strings, you start hearing all of this instrumentation and this depth that you really don't get from the Beatles before. These are the 8 days a week guys before that. I Want to Hold Your Hand. These very like simple, old pop rock songs that are great. They're classics for a reason. But it's here that they really start getting deeper musically, really start, delving into different sounds, and to great effect. This song's incredible.
Yeah, like you said, it's one of my favorite Beatles songs, and it's kind of ironic because the Beatles don't actually play on it. It's just their voices and a string section. I did a whole Beatles episode with JoJo earlier this year and talked about Revolver being this big turning point for the band. And you have these radical songs like Tomorrow Never Knows. Well, this in its own way is also radical. You may have looked at my notes here because the songs I mentioned, I Want to Hold Your Hand, 8 days a week. I mean, the same band that did those songs now has a song that is just a string octet. And the subject matter is so depressing. This woman who lives alone and dies alone. Nobody goes to her funeral. And the priest is also alone. Nobody cares about his sermon. It's so sad and mature and hauntingly beautiful, and it's the kind of creative risk that made the Beatles, Jeremy.
Yeah, and it really opens them up to this whole new world of like musical and emotional depth. Like you talked about, the lyrical content and everything. It really is just them sort of like growing and evolving in making some of the best music they'll make after this.
Mm-hmm. It also, I think, really kicks the door wide open for string arrangements being used in modern pop and rock music. Because how many songs since Eleanor Rigby came out have used violins or cellos to, spice up the sound? Quite a lot. And as someone who loves a good string section in a rock song, I'm very grateful for that, Jeremy. So
yeah, well, and even like this song being sampled, which has happened several times. My favorite probably being Talib Kweli's "Lonely People," that samples this to great effect. Like they changed, not by changing the way that they did things, they changed the way everyone did things because they were the biggest band in the world. And so, similarly to like if Taylor Swift starts experimenting with something now, or Beyonce does, well, then other people, Beyonce makes a country album now, maybe some other people want to start dipping their toes in country, and so similar way, Beatles really paved the way for a lot of people with everything that they did.
They were pretty good. They were pretty good. All right, so my next pick here, this isn't so much a change in sound as it is a change in faith. Because in the late 70s, Bob Dylan became an evangelical Christian, and he lets you know it with his music. This is from the second album of his Christian trilogy, called Saved. Bit on the nose there, Bobby. This song is called Solid Rock. So I know I could have talked about Dylan going electric, which was a massive change and a massive moment in music. Or I could have talked about him changing his voice into that country croon, lay across my big brass bed. But I thought the religious change was, more interesting for this episode here because it affected his songwriting. He became a gospel songwriter. From what I could tell, solid rock is a metaphor for the stability and strength of Jesus. If you look at the lyrics, for me he was chastised, for me he was hated, for me he was rejected by a world that he created. The H in he is capitalized in the lyrics. And when he went on tour around this time, he refused to do any of his old songs. He would only do the gospel stuff. So he went all in. And as someone who is Jewish, I think my first inclination is to call him a turncoat. But I actually really like a lot of his Christian stuff. I love the background singers there. I love the vim and vigor on this song. I think it's a real solid rock song, Jeremy, you might say.
I see what you did there. So solid rock is an extremely overt Christian reference. It's so the idea is, so Psalm 118:22 is the stone which the builders rejected has become the chief cornerstone. And Jesus quotes that in Matthew about himself. So he's saying, like, there's this passage that says, have you heard that the stone that the builders rejected has become the cornerstone? And so, like, he's saying, like, I am the stone. And that gets picked up throughout the rest of the New Testament. The other authors all sort of make their own runs on that. And then most famously, there's a hymn that says, on Christ the solid rock I stand, all other ground is sinking sand. And so he's taking, like, that idea and that lyric and, like, bringing them together in a way that for Christians would be, like, it's very, like, right down the middle, like, good Christian theology. So that's where the title is coming from on this one. What's really interesting about this was I went back and I was looking up, just some of the reviews of this album and things like that. And it was interesting that people criticized it for not being gospel enough. Like Kurt Loder, that was one of his complaints, was that, like, I don't really see how this, like, totally fits a gospel thing. Whereas, like, I think that just shows how differently we approach things today. Whereas, like, today we see an artist take a risk or do something a little bit different, and we're like, yeah, cool, they're doing something interesting and new. Not like, oh, this doesn't neatly go into the genre categories that I had already established, so I don't know what to do with it.
Mm-hmm. This is why you bring in a man of God as your guest, folks. Okay, it's for analysis like that. But it's funny, if you want a fun fact here, the first Grammy award that Bob Dylan ever won, not counting the concert for Bangladesh, was from this era. Yeah. Gotta Serve Somebody from the album Slow Train Coming, which was the one before this. That won Best Male Rock Performance, and that's a really good album too. So again, not everybody was on board for this, of course, with this turn, but it still worked out for him. Eventually he did go back to the heathen ways of his old music, I guess. But no, it wasn't like he flopped. He did pretty well, I think.
Yeah. Well, and he has even said, like, in even relatively recent interviews and stuff, that, like, like, I still believe all that stuff, like, but his music isn't as expressly Christian as it was for those 3 albums, which, way more successful than, say, Kanye West's venture into doing gospel music.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. All right, Jeremy, what you got next?
So next, you mentioned that, Bob Dylan going electric was a huge moment. Even if that's not the exact moment that we covered, that was a big moment for certain people. And my next pick comes from the Bob Dylan going electric for Gen X and elder millennials. And that is Metallica cutting their hair.
Ba-ba!
And so
The
this
horror.
is the horror.
The horror.
They cut their hair. And then they sued their fans. It was a rough decade for Metallica. But they did release a couple albums. The first of these called Load, and here's a track from it called Mama Said.
The mark that still remains left home at an early age of what I heard was wrong. I never asked forgiveness, but when it's said is done, let my heart go. Let your sun grow. Mama, let my heart go. Or let this heart be still. Never I ask of you, but never I give. But you gave me your emptiness, and I'll take to my grave. Never I ask of you, but never I give. But you gave.
Yeah, so that is a song called Mama Said about lead singer's mom. And James is just, pouring his heart out there in a nice little country song that's on a Metallica album. These are the same people that did Injustice for All and One and Black and,
Master of Puppets.
Master
you
of
know, all
Puppets. Ride the
list goes
Lightning.
on.
And now they've got short haircuts and they're doing this song with a slide guitar in it. What is going on? I remember this being, I was in 5th grade when this happened, and still just being what is happening? What happened to Metallica? But not to say there are great songs on Load. I think King Nothing, the first single off it, is sick. Until It Sleeps is a really good track. But it is just such a difference from the back then when you thought Metallica, you thought darkness, black t-shirts and long hair, and guys that they're gonna leave this concert and then go play Dungeons and Dragons, and it's it was so metal. It was so metal, and then it became so unmetal just with a haircut. It's amazing what a visual gimmick change can do.
I was also thinking about going with something from the Load Reload era. I think Until It Sleeps would have been my pick, actually. But yeah, Metallica going not fully country, but country rock, southern rock, that genre-wise. And it is startling compared to their 80s output. But I think once they hit the Black Album and crossed that Rubicon, it's not too surprising that they would continue to branch out into other styles and sounds there. Now, they did go a little too far with Saint Anger.
Yes.
Even though I do like that song, admittedly, it was a misstep, and they did have to, do a U-turn and go back with Death Magnetic. But I do think, there are some prime cuts on Load and Reload. This, Fuel, Memory Remains, King Nothing, Until It Sleeps, there's some good stuff there, Jeremy, for sure.
Oh yeah, it's good for them that they continued to change and evolve and try new things. But it just I think it's also that back then, you have to understand, there will be some listeners that will have no concept of this, but selling out was a thing that you didn't want to be known for. You didn't want your music in commercials. You didn't want to take certain opportunities because that meant you were a sellout and that you were just in it for the money and you weren't doing it for the music. And so people saw this haircut as, oh, Metallica sold out. They're going to make pop rock music now. It was this total, it got the sellout label placed on them. And then their other actions wouldn't do much to take it off of them. It really took for that to fall out of the public consciousness as a negative thing to have labeled on you for them to shed that, I feel like.
Yeah, nowadays, if a band doesn't have like a Fortnite skin or whatever, they're the weird ones, you know?
Yeah,
But,
well, there's that line in the movie Pop Star, Never Stop, Never Stopping, which
Great
is
movie. Great
amazing. If you've not seen that movie, people, run out and see that movie. Go to your nearest digital retail store and pick it up. But there's a line in it where Andy Samberg's character says, like, if you don't sell out, people will think no one asked you to. Like, like that's the thing now. It's like, if you don't do those things, then it's like, oh, well, you're not even, like, you can't be that popular then because they didn't even ask you to be in a commercial or whatever. Like, now people talk about rap feuds, and we'll talk about rap feuds in a little bit. But people talk about rap feuds now and mention record sales. That was never a conversation back in the day. You would never be like, well, let's see who sold more, Jay-Z or Nas. No, you're like, Nas made Ether and it destroyed Jay-Z. It doesn't matter that Takeover's a better song. It doesn't matter that Jay-Z sold more. Nas won the war because he made Ether. That's all that mattered. And so, like, it's just a totally different environment now.
Oh, you think your guy's so good? Well, check out my guy's RIAA certifications, all right? This man went quadruple platinum on 3 albums. What did your guy ever do, you know? But I will say this, one more thing about Mama Said. You know, James writing this as a tribute to his dead mom, it's a very tender thing. And I think it's hard to do a heartfelt song like that when you're going, yeah, all the time, you know? So it makes sense for him to, you know, change it up a little bit, I suppose, Jeremy.
Yeah, well, and like, they're sort of a victim of the audience that they cultivated by that point, that it's like, you've got this group of people that are here for Ride the Lightning. They're probably not going to be psyched about Mama Said. Like, the response kind of makes sense that, like, yeah, like, this really isn't for that crowd. And so the result of it was that it expanded their reach greatly, which was great for them, and is one of the reasons why they are a rumor for a Sphere residency coming up next year, which I may have to go check out if that happens. But yeah, it's interesting how they, you know, grew through this and changed and evolved, and yeah.
All right, well, my next pick here, let's have some Led Zeppelin on our plate, because I picked a song from the last Zeppelin album before John Bonham died, 1979's In Through the Outdoor. A very peculiar album, as we'll get into here, but I picked one of my favorite Zeppelin songs from the later era. This is Fool in the Rain.
I hate to think I've been blinded, baby. What can I see tonight? And the warmth of your smile starts burning, and the feel of your touch gives me fright. And I'm shaking so much, really yearn. Why don't you show up and make it alright? Yeah, it's alright. And if you promised your love so completely, and you said you would always be true, you swore that you never would leave me, baby, whatever happened to you? And you thought it was only in me, and you wished all your dreams would come true. Hey, it ain't the first time, believe me, baby, I'm standing here feeling blue.
Yeah, Metallica goes country, hold my beer, because here's Led Zeppelin goes samba. Yeah, such a big departure from the start of the decade where, you know, they were so blues oriented, but I love that song. I just love how smooth flowing the rhythm is, and the drum work, and Robert Plant's voice, that wild breakdown in the middle of the song where it becomes kind of like a street party. It's a good time, and this album really goes in a lot of different directions. You know, Fool in the Rain In the Evening, Carousel Alhambra, All My Love, Hot Dog, and they all sound different from each other. You know, there's samba, there's prog rock, there's a soft rock ballad, there's rockabilly. It's sort of a cosmic gumbo. You know, it's hyper violent, but it knows what it is. But it's also a reflection of John Paul Jones and Robert Plant becoming the main creative force at play on that album. Apparently, because Bonham and Page had some demons they were dealing with there at the time. But it's also a reflection of how far they've come, Jeremy.
Absolutely. I mean, this song is so good. Like, Bonham's performance on this song is up there with like any of their songs. Like the little like triplets on the hi-hats and stuff that he's doing. Like, there's so many there's so many little things he does on this song that are incredible. And then, it breaks out into like a street party and then comes back into the song. It's so good. I feel like the first few times I heard this, because my dad was a huge classic rock guy. And so he'd always be listening to stuff. And I feel like the first few times this came on in the car, I was just like, what? That's Led Zeppelin? Like, no, that can't be Led Zeppelin. Like, the same people that have done like all these, that's Led Zeppelin? Like, because it's so different, but it's so good. Like, as an adult, this has become one of my favorite Led Zeppelin songs just because it's so, like, funky and so interesting. And I just love how, like, complicated and complex the whole thing is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know... shockingly, this album didn't have the best reviews because it is lighter and more synth heavy, as opposed to the gritty guitar stuff that they were known for. But you know, it does make you wonder what Zeppelin would have sounded like if Bonham didn't die, and they continued into the 80s. I know Jimmy Page has said that they were going to do another guitar heavy album after this one before Bonham died, but you know, even after that, it's a real big what if, I think, for sure, Jeremy.
Yeah, totally. Because, like, given all that the 80s would usher in musically, like, man, what do those four dudes look like, you know, starting to mix in all those sounds and stuff? Like, that's a really interesting, alternate dimension idea of what would happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, if there's this much keyboard work and synth work already in 79, I can only imagine, you know, by 84, 85, what it would become. But, we'll never know, unfortunately, because Bonham died. But
I know, like, do these guys end up becoming, like, Mute Math before Mute Math? Like, that's the only thing I could... Because, like, you've got, like, the absolutely insane drummer, and then you've got, you know, like, you get three other dudes, and... obviously, the other three much more talented in Led Zeppelin, but who knows? That's the way it could have gone. Could have been interesting.
Yeah, definitely. But all right, what you got next there, Jeremy?
So I had mentioned a rap battle earlier on the show, and Andrew, have you ever lost a rap battle so bad you changed genres? Because that happened. That happened to my hometown boy, Machine Gun Kelly. And
who is this man? I don't know that name.
MGK, if you will.
Oh, okay. Now I know him.
And one MGK, the song that I've chosen off of his first pop punk album, was one that I had no idea was by him. And turns out it is. It's called Bloody Valentine.
Just went bad, but you're the best I ever had. Like Cam Prince and West Net, she touched me as permanent. In my head, I couldn't hear anything you said, but in my head, I'm calling you girlfriend.
So, Machine Gun Kelly, as he was known at the time, picked a fight with Eminem, and he lost. He lost real bad. He got destroyed in a way that, I mean, no one until Drake had been in a long time. And as a result, he just dropped rap completely and turned pop punk. And I knew that had happened, but I hadn't heard any of the music until Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 for the newest systems came out a couple years ago. And with this re-release, they had in, of course, the songs that like had to be there, like Superman has to be on the soundtrack for that. But they added in some new music, and one of the songs that they added in was this song Bloody Valentine that I'm just jamming out to, skating around all those old maps and reliving my glory days. And I'm like, man, this song's pretty good. And only to look it up and find out that this song is, in fact, by Machine Gun Kelly. And that he has so completely changed his image that now he's making pop punk that to me sounds just like any other pop punk band that you could find on the radio.
Yeah, well, first of all, MGK, all fucking... oh, wait, that's something else. Yeah, I put Machine Gun Kelly in the same group as like a Jelly Roll or Post Malone, the white guy who does the rap thing for a bit and then switches over to something else. I believe the term culture vulture is the accusation that people throw at guys like that. Here's what I appreciate though. Instead of going the country route, like a lot of other guys seem to do nowadays, MGK went pop punk. He even got Travis Barker drumming on and producing the album. So he did at least go, to a master of the craft in that sense. Now, this hasn't really convinced me to check out more of his stuff, mind you, but it's okay, I guess, Jeremy.
For me, like, there's like a space for this kind of song for me. For your like pop punk stuff, it's not my normal like favorite genre that I would gravitate to. So maybe I'm not as well versed in like the nuances, and someone like a Chris Samsa or someone will be like, it's crap because of this, and that. But like for me, like I like this song. The rest of the album, not so much because I tried listening to some of the other songs, but this one, I'm like, this is a pretty good pop punk single. I'm not gonna lie, I kind of dig it.
Yeah, the only other things I really know about the guy are he dated Megan Fox for a few years, and she's in the music video for this, actually. He also played Tommy Lee in the Motley Crue movie, The Dirt. He was in Jackass Forever, where he got hit by a giant hand into the pool.
Yep.
And Kevin Owens powerbombed him off the stage on Raw that one time. So maybe I do like MGK. I don't know, Jeremy. I don't know.
He also has a song called Till I Die that, as a Cleveland native, is very dear to my heart, as it was Stipe Miocic's walkout song in the UFC that is all about Cleveland. And so that gives him a little bit of a soft spot for me.
All right. Well, I mentioned earlier, Jeremy, that the last time you were on, we played Beth by Kiss. Well, guess who's back? Back again. Kiss is back. You better tell a friend. And they're back in disco form, baby. This is from 1979's Dynasty. And this is one of their big hits, I Was Made for Lovin' You.
I wanna give it all to you. In the darkness, there's so much I wanna do.
Yeah, Kiss Goes Disco, or Kisco, as I call it. Two things about this song. One is Peter Criss, the Catman. He's on the album cover. He's in the video. He doesn't actually play on the song because the producer, Vinny Poncia, thought he wasn't good enough. So poor Catman. The other thing is, I love the backstory of this song. The story goes that Paul Stanley wanted to prove that all those big disco hits of the 70s were super easy to write. Anyone can do them. So they did it. Him, Desmond Child, who's one of the all-time great songwriters of his day, and Poncia wrote this song. And sure enough, it's a big hit. Number 11 in the Billboard charts. Number 1 or 2 in several countries. So like Beth, a change in sound gives the band one of their biggest hits. And also, it's so funny to see the reactions back then being, as you said about Metallica cutting their hair, Jeremy, oh, they sold out. They went disco. They sold out. It's like, guys, it's Kiss. Selling out is what they do. If it'll make them a buck, they're going to do it. And you know what? They did it. And you know what? It's a pretty good song too, Jeremy.
It really is. Like, mission accomplished. Like, if the goal was anybody can make one of those disco songs, here, we'll make one and it'll be great. They did. They did it. They actually did it. It's sort of the opposite of the last episode where I was talking about, Noel Gallagher saying like, we don't need to release Master Plan on an actual album because I don't write shit songs. We'll just, I'll write more. And then, like, he didn't do that many that were in that echelon again. Whereas these guys were like, we can do this. This is our experiment. We're going to go out there. We're going to make a disco song. And then they did, and it was excellent. And yeah, Kiss, amazing. It's funny because, while Metallica would scandalize generations by cutting their hair, Kiss, they didn't even have to do that. They just washed their faces, and it was mind-blowing.
We finally see what these guys look like, and not exactly the Adonises underneath the makeup, perhaps. But listen, I'm sure they still got plenty of action on the road. No doubt about that. Makeup or no makeup, I guarantee you that. So, yeah. But it's funny, Gene Simmons has said that this is his least favorite Kiss song, but they still played it for many years after this, like up to their last tour. This was still in the set list. A more rock version of it, of course, but I'm sure Gene was thinking like, just think about the money, like that was going through his head the whole time there. So,
yeah, I mean, like as you alluded to, these are not guys that have been super principled about their music and stuff. So, yeah, like it's a great song.
Yeah. All right, what's your next pick there, Jeremy?
So my next song is another rock band with some big hair, but this is a more modern one. This is the band Coheed and Cambria, and a song that they have that sounds very different than the rest of their catalog off of their album. Shoot, I don't remember the whole name because it's like 17 words long. It's got a big number 4 in Roman numerals on the cover, but it is a song called Wake Up.
That would be Good Apollo, I'm Burning Star 4, Volume 1, From Fear Through the Eyes of Madness.
Which, would you believe, we'll get into it, but Good Apollo, I'm Burning Star 4 is a lyric from one of the songs. So, Coheed and Cambria, everyone. We'll get into it, but first, have a little listen to Wake Up.
It's also their third album, by the way, but that's beside the point. That's beside the point there. Here's Wake Up.
In backseat staring out of the window, I'll do anything for you, kill anyone for you. So leave yourself intact, 'cause I will be coming back in the freeze to cut these lips. I love you. The morning will come.
your head upon my chest, where I will annoy you with every waking breath until you decide to wake up. I've earned through hope and faith on the curves around your face.
So Coheed and Cambria, if you did not know, is a band that has made a continuous rock opera for their entire career. All of these songs are stories, are part of this larger space epic that they're telling. And in that, usually, you know, they're prog rock, prog metal, sort of different things. Like Welcome Home is sort of the iconic Coheed and Cambria song, was very popular in Rock Band, you know, and things like that. And then they have this song on the same album called Wake Up that sounds like this like lovely little like love song until you start like listening to the lyrics where he says, "I'll do anything for you, kill anyone for you." And you're like, wait, what? Which then you get the most romantic lyric in the whole song. "So leave yourself intact because I will be coming back." What? And so,
in a phrase to cut these lips, I love you.
Yeah. And so if you read the whole lyrics to the song, the way this plays into the story is, I believe one of the characters is like leaving to go on some like mission that's like a suicide mission or something like that. And so that's why it's like, you know, the ending line of the chorus is like, "Until you decide to wake up," because in the morning, like, he's gone is sort of the idea, I think. It's tough to parse. There's comic books. The lore goes deep. If you love lore, if you just couldn't get enough of the WWE Bray Wyatt lore or Aleister Black lore, do I have a band for you? Coheed and Cambria, they got the lore. And then they whip out a little song like this that sounds like something that like, oh, this was like our first dance at our wedding, but it couldn't be because it's insane. So I don't know. It's interesting. What do you think?
Well, I played these guys a few months ago on the Running the Razor episode, and I only know a handful of their songs, but the songs that I do know, they don't sound like this. Because you mentioned Welcome Home. Welcome Home is on the same album, and I love that song, and it's so heavy and operatic and over the top. You know, they goose them up a little, of course, whereas this is a love ballad, you know, a creepy love ballad, mind you, but still a soft love ballad, and it is quite different than what I'm used to of this band. And yeah, it's funny, like, looking through the YouTube comments, so many people are like, if I listen to this, I start crying. You know, I think about my ex-girlfriend, or I think about my old flame from back in the day, and it's like, I don't know what their relationships were like, but but clearly, you know, this song means a lot to people, Jeremy.
It's one of the things that, so Malcolm Gladwell I did not expect to go here on this song, but let's go. So Malcolm Gladwell did an episode of his podcast where he railed about how bad the song Wild Horses is. And the reason that he sort of gave was that all of the lyrics were generic. Like, they were just very, like, flimsy. Like, you couldn't ever, like, really feel that it's a real situation. It's just, like, it's like the song was written for people to accept universally as this, like, love ballad or whatever. And he contrasted that with some other songs. I forget which one. And I think what's happening with this is that, like, it's so earnest. And granted, I would hope it's not coming from a real place for him. But there are, like, there are little bits and pieces in it that you can, like, grab onto. And you have these, like, oh, that reminds me of this in my own life. The way, like, art is supposed to do. And so I think that's it speaks to how effective this song is, that like even though it's unhinged, if you really sit down and read the lyrics, like when you hear them and maybe you just catch a phrase here or there, it can really lock into memories that you have or situations that you've been in the way that like great songs really should.
Yeah, again, I mean, if a piece of music means something to you, then good. That's what music should be trying to do, And yeah, what may be personal to me may not be personal to you or vice versa, but, that's the nature of a subjective art form like music, That's just the way it is. So, yeah, but all right, my next pick here, this is a band that started out as a ska punk outfit over in Anaheim, but then they blossomed and evolved over the years into something a bit different. This is No Doubt, off of their 2001 album Rock Steady. This is Hey Baby.
Hey baby, hey baby, hey. Girls say, boys say, hey baby, hey baby, hey. Hey baby, baby. I'm the kind of girl that hangs with the guys, like a fly on the wall with my secret eyes. Taking it in, try to be feminine with my makeup bag, watching all the sin. Misfit, I sit, lit up, wicked. Everybody else surrounded by the girls with the tank tops and the flirty ways. I'm just sipping on chamomile, watching boys and girls and the sex appeal. With a stranger in my face who says he knows my mom and went to my high school. All the boys say, hey baby, hey baby, hey. Girls say, hey baby, hey baby, hey. Hey baby, baby. Hey baby, hey baby, hey. Boys say, hey baby, hey baby, hey.
Yes, similar to the Black Eyed Peas, it took a few albums before No Doubt broke big. And it took going, quote unquote, mainstream with their sound on Tragic Kingdom to get that big. Just a Girl, Spiderwebs, Don't Speak, Sunday Morning. Those songs are still rooted in ska punk and alt rock and that kind of sound, but they can also be enjoyed by a larger, pop music audience. And with Hey Baby, the band is going even further into a pop direction, but they're still doing it in their own way because this song is specifically inspired by Jamaican dancehall music. The album was partly recorded in Jamaica, and this song features a Jamaican dancehall DJ named Bounty Killer on it. So they're diving headfirst into this style, and sure enough, this catchy, dancey song was another big hit for them, Jeremy.
Oh yeah, this is it's interesting because this feels in retrospect sort of like the Booker planting seeds that a tag team's about to break up, because this song doesn't really sound like No Doubt. But you know what this song does kind of sound like? Love Music Angel Baby. This sort of sounds like the solo stuff that Gwen would go on to do.
I was going to say that, yeah.
And so it's kind of interesting that, they've, that you have this song that I legit forgot was a No Doubt song. I thought this was a Gwen Stefani song. But yeah, how they're really sort of mixing up things, and maybe that didn't bode so well for the other folks in the band.
Yeah, I mean, they broke up after this album or went on hiatus or whatever you want to call it. And then they got back together later on with Push and Shove, which is a great album, I think. I do enjoy that comeback album. And then they broke up again, of course. But regardless, yeah, this does, I was going to say, it does serve as a springboard for Gwen Stefani into her solo career, because she's not doing a lot of ska punk rockers on her solo albums. She's a pop star now.
Yep.
But there's still been that variety in her sound. I think her most recent album was like a yacht rock country sort of thing. And that's a far cry from Hollaback Girl and The Sweet Escape. So, even away from No Doubt, she is still, branching out into different sounds there, Jeremy.
You marry a country artist, and this is what happens. You start making country music.
You leave behind the guy from Bush, and the rock influences go out the door, baby. Go out the door. But yeah, that was No Doubt. And I believe, Jeremy, your next pick is your second to last. So what you got?
So my next pick is not going to. You're gonna think this is a completely wrong pick. Why is this on this list? And we'll explain afterwards. But first, you should listen to the song, and it's the Bee Gees. You Should Be Dancing. So that sounds like the most Bee Gees song that's ever Bee Geed. Why is this on the list? Well, you may be curious to learn, as I sure was as I was doing some research for this show, that the Bee Gees have 12 albums that they released before that song. None of them are disco. They do have, so this is the first track on Children of the World, which is their full-on disco album, their first one. They did have on their album Main Course, they had Jive Talkin', which is disco-ish, but it's not, it doesn't sound like Bee Gees disco the way you think of it. It's not until this album Children of the World and then the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack that you really get Bee Gees as we think of the Bee Gees. And it happens over half of the way through their albums. They have more albums as a folk band than they do as a disco band. That's crazy to me.
I was the exact same way as you. You know, for so long, Bee Gees were the disco band. You know, Staying Alive, Night Fever, More Than a Woman. And eventually I learned, yeah, the disco stuff was like 12, 13, 14 albums in or whatever. Like, the Bee Gees had an entire career before the disco era, you know, doing Baroque pop and folk and soft rock and psychedelic pop, you know, all sorts of other styles, and being fairly successful too. You know, How Can You Mend a Broken Heart and Lonely Days, To Love Somebody, I Started a Joke, all great songs, all doing very well in the charts. But yeah, once the disco stuff came around, you know, the money machine go brr, and they blew up huge. And the songs are great too, which helps a lot, Jeremy. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, most definitely. And like, I mean, the soundtrack for Saturday Night Fever, it can't be understated, because that just like, huge. That cemented them as they're the disco people, because they're the only band on that soundtrack, right? Like, it's just them. And I think
there's
I
others.
Could be wrong. Are there?
There's others. Yeah.
Oh, okay. It just had some previously released tracks. Okay, there are some others. But that is where you get, like, all of the Bee Gees songs that you think of, you know, front of mind. It's that. And so, yeah, it's super interesting that, like, they were able to be successful for so long and then pull off this change so dramatically that no one even remembers the old one. Like, it's one thing for that to be, you know, Pantera, who didn't get famous until they switched to thrash metal, versus a band that has been successful for a very long time, but then changes forms so completely that no one even remembers the old one before, even though they'd won a Grammy before that, right? Or they'd been nominated. They were nominated. They were nominated in 72. Like, and yet we don't even remember it, because all we think of is the disco. That's how big and how, prominent this change was for them.
Yeah, I mean, listen, they're not the only band to do this either. We saw it with Kiss. A bunch of acts dabbled in disco around this time. The Rolling Stones, Miss You, Blondie, Heart of Glass, Rod Stewart, Do You Think I'm Sexy, Wings, Good Night Tonight. The Star Wars theme had a disco remix, for God's sake. Like, it was a pretty common occurrence. And the thing, too, about the Bee Gees is their disco era lasted 4 or 5 years, maybe, and they were done with it by the turn of the decade. Like, it's only a small piece of their career, but it's also their biggest, Jeremy.
Yep.
Crazy, yeah. But all right. My second to last pick here, a big left turn from that last one there. This is another Christian-based song, in a manner of speaking. This is the band Ministry, featuring Gibby Haynes from the Butthole Surfers on lead vocals. This is from the Ministry album Psalm 69. Nice. The Way to Succeed and The Way to Suck Eggs. This is, of course, Jesus Built My Hot Rod. Ding, ding, dong, 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 ding, dong, dingy, dingy, son of a gun. What a poet. What a poet. I've never been a Ministry guy. I do like that song, but they've never really been my thing. To quote Austin Powers, that's not my bag, baby. But the reason I picked them is very much like your Bee Gees pick, Jeremy, because for so long I heard people talk about Ministry as one of the all-time great industrial bands. So heavy and intense and dark. This song has elements of thrash metal and speed metal in there too. You have the Butthole Surfers lead singer. We are down and dirty. And then, a few years back, I was in the car listening to XM, and a Ministry song came on called Work for Love. And once again, I had to do a double take, because I didn't believe it was them. In fact, let me play a little snippet of that song, Work for Love, and you'll see what I mean.
Now you're taking applications for your love. You wanted certain specifications, sugar the one that's at all the above. What?
Yep, that is Ministry. 9 years before Jesus Built My Hot Rod as a full-blown synth-pop band. In fact, Al Jorgensen, the main guy, even adopted a fake British accent while he sang. And look, I prefer the synth-pop sound, to be honest with you, but it is not indicative at all of the rest of the band's output, Jeremy.
Wow. Well, ding a dang dong 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 ling long. That's all I got to say to that. That's wow. I actually hadn't heard that before, so I'm glad you played that. Yeah, because I'm not super familiar with Ministry. I was in Ministry once, but
Oh, you.
but the band not so familiar. I will say Psalm 69 is more about sucking eggs than succeeding because it's about being persecuted. But that's crazy that I do also prefer the synth sound to this, because this is just sort of like the wall of noise metal that is not really my bag. Like I like a melody. I'm a big Deftones guy, and so that's what I'm usually looking for. But yeah, this is like a complete change from the synth stuff.
Mm-hmm. And the funny thing is, even with this turn to industrial, this song was still a hit. 19 on the modern rock tracks. So we talk about bands turning toward the pop realm to get commercial success. This is a band going in the opposite direction, going into the grit with, nonsense vocals you can barely hear, and it still ends up selling records. It's amazing, Jeremy.
That's crazy. What's also crazy about this is that this song, apparently they had been given a $750,000 advance to make their record, and they spent all of it on drugs and had nothing to show for it. And then they came up with this song. That's incredible.
Look, some people spend their money on shirts from Dan Flash's. Some people spend their money on drugs. We all have our things, so, it is what it is. But all right, Jeremy, what's your last pick of the episode here?
So my last pick is a song that is probably the one song from this band that people know. And what they don't know is how much it is totally dissimilar from the rest of their catalog. That is the band Extreme. The song is called More Than Words.
Say I love you is not the words I want to hear from you. It's not that I want to not to say, but if you only knew how easy it would be to show me how you feel. More than words is all you have to do to make it real. Then you wouldn't have to say that you love me, 'cause I'd already know. What would you do if my heart was...
I mean, just such a delightful little, soft radio station, classic. This was on every soft rock station in the 90s, and everybody knows Extreme More Than Words, right? What could the rest of the band sound like? Well, turns out the rest of their
If you
songs...
don't like what you see here, get the funk out. Get the funk out, get the funk... Yeah.
Yeah, so you got Get the Funk Out. You've got I didn't know this was them for the longest time, from the Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure movie, when there's the scene where all of the historical figures go crazy in a mall, and like Mozart's playing like 6 pianos, and Joan of Arc's like in the sporting goods section with like Genghis Khan, and they're like, they've got pads on and they're like taking out security guards and stuff. While that's playing, there is an Extreme song playing during all of that called Play With Me. That is that is exactly what Extreme sounds like. It is, this like hair metal, funk metal sort of vibe. That's like, it's a great song of that genre, but could not possibly be more different than More Than Words.
No, absolutely not. Yeah, the Pride of Boston, Extreme. I make the joke, every bad boy has his soft side, from the commercial, but but it's true. Every band in the 80s and early 90s had the power ballad. And ironically, for a band called Extreme, their ballad doesn't have power. It's just Gary Sharon and Nuno Betancourt and an acoustic guitar. It's very minimal and folky, and it definitely sets them apart from those other bands who still have the big drums and the epic guitar solo in their quote-unquote soft song. And it also sets them apart from the grunge scene that is now emerging into the mainstream around this time. So, I think this arrangement, really makes the song timeless. It doesn't sound dated at all, Jeremy.
No, this is just an absolute classic. Like this could be like any artist could cover this and kill it. Like anybody that's good, like this is it's so interesting. And it's interesting too because like they were really afraid that this was going to pigeonhole them, because when your whole catalog doesn't sound like this and you've got people showing up and expecting to hear more than words at your concerts, it's like, well, are they going to want to hear the rest of the stuff? And so I guess there was one time where they were on tour in Europe or something, and they were like, yeah, they're like, we're not going to play the song anymore. And they were on tour with Aerosmith, and Steven Tyler like stuck a note on their like dressing room door that was play the song.
They were in Poland, I believe, and Steven Tyler was like, look, guys, this is your first time in Poland. Who knows when you'll be back? Like, the people want to hear this song, just play the song for them, Like, that's pretty much it, I think.
I can empathize though with them, like, because especially like when the rest of your stuff is so different. Like, I gotta imagine it's similar to like what some comedians are going through. Like, you think of like Sal Vulcano from Impractical Jokers. Like, he's on Impractical Jokers, and so everyone knows him from Impractical Jokers. So when he does stand-up, he's going to draw Impractical Jokers fans to the comedy club, which are a very different group of people. It was interesting. We were at the Venetian a few weeks ago. We were seeing Mark Norman. And so they've got like
great comedian.
Amazing comedian. Very, very funny. And he killed it. He was great. And they've got like, the slides going on the projectors for other shows that are coming up as, we're waiting for the show to start. And on all of them, it's normal. It's just like whatever the art is for the poster and the artist and the info's there. But on Sal's, it said 16 and older, specifically only on his. And what we figured was it had to be because when you're the Impractical Jokers guy, you're going to get someone bringing their 12-year-old to see you do comedy, where it's not Impractical Jokers level. Like, they're not bleeping stuff here in the comedy club. Like, you're going to get rated R Sal Vulcano. And so I know that's one of the reasons, like, Bert Kreischer stopped doing Travel Channel stuff, was because it was pigeonholing him into that. And so it's a real thing. And so it's interesting that was something that they were at least aware of. But at the same token, this was the success of this song allowed them to keep making music. This was the movie director, one for them, one for me sort of situation, that this set them up to, keep going.
Well, that's the interesting thing. Another story about this is apparently the band actually had to fight the record company to make it a single. Quoting Nuno here. Yeah, quoting Nuno in a Billboard interview, our label at the time, A&M Records, didn't want to release More Than Words as a single because there was nothing on the radio like that at the time. The label said, who's going to play it? Everybody was doing big power ballads at the time, and this was more like an Everly Brothers or Beatles track, but we fought for it. And that sounds crazy in retrospect that the label wouldn't put it out, because guess what? This is a #1 hit single. This was a monster of a hit, but, thank God they lost that battle and put it out, because it made the label a schmuckload of money, I'm sure.
Now I'm curious, because that's absolutely insane that they would not think that should be a single. What's interesting, okay, this was what I had to look up, so this came out the same year as Mr. Big's To Be With You, which I think of these songs as being very linked, because they're, it's just the acoustic and it's very stripped down, not the whole power ballad thing. But More Than Words was first. It came out in March. And then To Be With You came out later that year in November. So I wonder how much of To Be With You's release was like Atlantic going, well, hey, A&R, like they did okay with, More Than Words. Maybe we give it a shot and try this song.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some interesting stories come out of this song for sure. Beyond the fact that it's a classic, But all right, my last pick here. This is one of my favorite bands ever. It's Rush, and I could have picked a bunch of songs that exemplify how they modified their sound over the years. Going from hard rock to prog rock, from prog rock to some more new wave style. But there's one song that answers the question, what would it be like if a Rush song had rap in it? And this is that song. This is the title track off their 1991 album. This is Roll the Bones.
Relax, get busy with the facts. No zodiacs or almanacs, no maniacs or polyester slashes the facts. Gonna kick some media smacks. It's a parallax, you dig? You move around, small gets big, it's a rig. It's action, reaction, random interaction. So who's afraid of a little abstraction? Can't get no satisfaction from the facts. You better run them, boy. Facts are fact from known to known. What's the deal? Spin the wheel if the dice are hot. Take a shot, play your cards, show us what you got, what you're holding. If the cards are cold, don't go folding. Lady Luck is golden. She favors a bowl, that's cold. Stop throwing stones, the night has 1,000 saxophones. So get out there and rock and roll the bones. Get busy. Roll the bones.
So that song's about taking chances. If the universe is random and chaotic, then roll the bones, roll the dice, give it a shot. And Neil Peart called this a lyrical experiment, that section, taking a chance here and writing some rap. And it's not what I would call Nas-level lyricism. No zodiacs or almanacs, no maniacs and polyester slacks, just the facts. Gonna kick some gluteus max. It's a parallax, you dig? Stop throwing stones. The night has 1,000 saxophones, so get out there and rock, roll the bones, get busy. Tupac, it's not. But at the same time, it's exactly what you expect from Rush, I think. These guys are nerdy goofballs who make music for other nerdy goofballs like me. So it's perfect, I think. And you know what? I do unironically love the song and the rap. I can't help it, Jeremy. I'm sorry.
It's something. I'll tell you. It's I do enjoy Rush. Most of the songs that I don't go very deep into Rush, but the big ones I'm a fan. And yeah, this is not one that I spin very often. It's certain they went for it. I'll give them that. They went out in the world and took their chances, as they say in the pre-chorus.
And for those wondering, that is Geddy Lee doing the rap. They lowered his voice a lot in the mix there. Apparently they thought about getting an actual rapper to do it, or Robbie Robertson from the band, or John Cleese, of all people. But eventually it was Geddy, because you know what? If it's going to be a Rush rap, it should be a Rush rap through and through, Jeremy, I guess.
Absolutely. So. I guess you mentioned, John Cleese. That almost gives it an everybody's free to wear sunscreen kind of vibe to me. That it'd just be some guy just talking over this. I'm sure, I don't know. I guess he'd try to rap it some. Now I want to hear that. I really want the Monty Python version of this.
Yeah, to quote Geddy Lee here from the Wikipedia page, we couldn't make up our minds really if we wanted to be influenced by rap or satirize it. So I think that song kind of falls between the cracks, and in the end, I think it came out to be neither. It came out to be something that is very much us. Yeah, very apt words there from Geddy. So
Yeah, I mean, this definitely sounds like a band that can't figure out if they're trying to satirize or earnestly do rap. So yeah, I can hear it.
Yeah. Yeah, but all right, we're ending on the Rush rap, folks. That's those were our picks. And Jeremy, another really fun time here. You know, we had pop hits, we had acoustic rap, industrial metal, gospel, a trilogy of blatant I think you should leave references on my part. So yeah, as always, a total blast here, man.
Yeah, this was great. This was a blast. If Garth Brooks ever tells us where the bodies are buried, then maybe next time we'll throw Chris Gaines on the list. But
yeah, he's not available on streaming. You can't, it's so difficult to.
It's crazy to me that, like, yeah, you cannot stream Garth Brooks anywhere. That's so wild. It's such a crazy. There's no. Who else is like that? Like, you can stream the Beatles. You can stream, like, think of anyone. They're on there somewhere, but nowhere. Nowhere is good enough for one Garth Brooks.
Yeah. I think he turned out okay there, but thank you, man. This was great.
Yeah, thank you. This was a blast as always.
Any plugs you want to give? Go right ahead.
No, voicesofwrestling.com. It's September, so I need to start thinking about match of the year, but none of you will until January. But yeah, that's really all I got going on these days. I do have, there's some things in the work, but I don't want to talk about them yet, until they're closer to being ready. But there's some really exciting stuff on the way, but probably not until next year. So, yeah, 2026, hopefully going to be better than 2025.
We'll see. But I do want to stress, again, just how great a job you do with the Match of the Year website and the G1 Climax Pick'em website as well. Very seamless, very spiffy looking as well. So yeah, just great work on your part with those sites.
Thank you. Well, I'm in the process right now of there's a tool behind the scenes that gets used for all of the Sport of Pro Wrestling stuff, including the G1 Pick'em, and it's where Chris Samsa pulls his data from, this little database. And so I'm in the process of reworking that, which isn't very exciting for anyone except for me and Chris, but it is going to then springboard us onto some very exciting things. So yeah, excited for that and where that's all going, and hopefully some cool internet experiences for people in the future that I think people are really going to like.
Neil Young was right, man. We're in the future. This is, we're sample and holding here with all this technology. It's great, But yeah, Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network, of course, all the great shows on there. Voicesofwrestling.com, previews, reviews, articles, things like that. Bluesky at Music of the Mat and at Just Andrew on Bluesky. If you want to leave a comment about this episode, share your picks, voicesofwrestling.com/Discord. That's also where I post the Spotify playlist for each episode. And, of course, subscribe to the show on Apple, Spotify, your podcast player of choice, and leave a nice rating and review. All right, so I said earlier, we're going to go out with a guy who made gimmick changes his gimmick, really. David Bowie, the man who was always changing up his look and his sound until the end, And this is from one of his more drastic changes. In 1997, he put out an album called Earthling, which is drum and bass, industrial, jungle, techno, electronica, that whole shindig. And this is the opening track off of that album. This is a song called Little Wonder. Thanks again, Jeremy.
Thank you.
Stinking weather, fat, shaky hand, dusty morning, dark, grumpy house. Little wonder then, little wonder, you little wonder you. Big screen dolls, tricks and explosions, sleepy time, passable with you. Little wonder then, little wonder, you little wonder you. I'm getting it. Intergalactic, seeming to be you. It's all in the tablets, sneezy with time.
music of the Mad is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. The songs used throughout this show are property of their respective copyright holders.
Do you like wrestling trivia? Then check out the 5-Star Match Game, the Pro Wrestling Quiz Show. I'm Joe Gagney, and every episode, I grill 3 contestants with 5 rounds of power-packed wrestling trivia. We have over 30 evergreen episodes in the archives covering WWE, AEW, Japan, Mexico, and much, 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 much more. Play along at home and check it out today.
Hello, do you like New Japan Pro Wrestling? Are you a Shin Nihon freak? If so, check out the Super J-Cast with Joel and Damon on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network.
And even if you fucking hate New Japan Pro Wrestling, listen to the Super J-Cast anyway. Not just for our great show reviews, analysis, and pastrami sandwiches, but there's also usually some dick jokes somewhere in the obligatory opening 30 minutes of absolute nonsense we chat about every single week. That's the Super J-Cast for all the best talk about New Japan Pro Wrestling, crisps, and pornography.